Picture this. It's 2019 and you're 18 years old, sitting in your high school counselor's office. They slide a college brochure across the desk and tell you that a degree, any degree, is your ticket to the middle class. Your parents are nodding along because that's what they were told. Your teachers are reinforcing it because, well, that's the path they took. So you do what millions of Americans do every single year. You sign on the dotted line, you take out $40,000, $60,000, maybe $120,000 in student loans because everyone around you is saying the same thing. It's an investment in yourself. It'll pay off. Trust the process. Fast forward to today, you're 24, 25, maybe 28 years old. You've got that diploma hanging on your wall or stuffed in a drawer somewhere, let's be honest, and you're working a job that didn't exactly require 4 years of higher education. You're making $42,000 a year, you've got $600 a month going to student loans, and you're watching your friends who skipped college entirely somehow buying houses while you're still splitting rent with 2 roommates. And here's the worst part. Nobody wants to say it out loud. There's this weird cultural pressure to pretend it was all worth it, to never admit that maybe, just maybe, the math didn't work out the way everyone promised it would. Well, today we're going to say it out loud. We're going to look at the actual data, the brutal, uncomfortable, occasionally infuriating data on which degrees actually provide a positive return on investment in 2025, and which ones are quietly destroying people's financial futures before they even start. My name is Sage, and I spend way too much time analyzing the economics of life decisions, especially the ones we're pressured into making before our brains are even fully developed. If you're someone who's either questioning whether your degree was worth it, trying to figure out if college makes sense for you or your kids, or just curious about why so many educated people are struggling financially, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. Because here's the thing, this isn't about being anti-education. I'm genuinely not. Education is incredible. Learning is one of the most valuable things a human being can do. But there's a massive difference between education and a $150,000 piece of paper. And somewhere along the way, we conflated the two to the point where questioning the value of a specific degree became almost taboo. Today, we're breaking that taboo with math. All right, let's start with some context, because understanding how we got here helps explain why so many people are in the situation they're in. Back in 1980, the average cost of a 4-year public university, tuition, fees, room and board, was about $3,100 per year. Adjusted for inflation, that's roughly $11,500 in today's dollars. You know what it actually costs today? Over $23,000 per year for in-state students at public universities. For private universities, we're talking $55,000 to $60,000 annually. So college costs have more than doubled in real terms, meaning even after accounting for inflation, in just 40 years. But here's what most people don't realize. Wages for college graduates have not doubled. They've barely moved. The median starting salary for a college graduate in 1980 was about $50,000 in today's dollars. The median starting salary for a college graduate right now, about $60,000. That's a 20% increase over 4 decades, while the cost increased by over 100%. This is where the math starts breaking down. This is where the promise starts cracking. The implicit deal was always spend 4 years and some money now, earn significantly more later. And for a long time, that deal held up. College graduates did earn substantially more than high school graduates, and the gap was wide enough to justify almost any tuition cost. But something shifted. Actually, 2 things shifted. First, the supply of college graduates absolutely exploded. In 1970, about 11% of Americans had a bachelor's degree. Today, it's over 37%. Basic economics tells us that when supply increases dramatically, the premium for that thing decreases. Having a degree used to be a differentiator. Now it's increasingly just a baseline expectation, and sometimes not even that. Second, and this is crucial, not all degrees experienced the same market dynamics. Some fields saw their earning potential skyrocket, while others stagnated or even declined relative to non-degree holders. But the cost of obtaining all of these degrees, that went up across the board. So now we have a situation where an engineering degree and an art history degree cost roughly the same amount to obtain, but their economic outcomes are so different, they might as well be entirely different products. And nobody told the 18-year-olds signing those loan documents. All right, before we get into specific degrees, let's establish how we actually calculate whether a degree is worth it financially. Because most people have never actually done this math, and I don't blame them. The education system certainly doesn't teach it. Return on investment for a degree has four main components. One, the direct cost. This is tuition, fees, books, room and board, everything you actually pay to the institution over 4 years, or 5 years, or 6 years. Because here's a stat that might surprise you. Only 41% of students at four-year universities actually graduate in 4 years. The 6-year graduation rate is 62%. So right off the bat, the 4-year degree is often a 5 or 6-year investment. Two, the opportunity cost. This is the money you didn't earn while you were in school. If you spent 4 years in college instead of working, and the average 18 to 22-year-old without a degree earns about $28,000 annually, that's $112,000 in wages you never received. This is the number people almost always forget, and it completely changes the math. Three, the interest on any debt you took on. If you borrowed $60,000 at 7% interest and pay it off over 15 years, you're not paying $60,000. You're paying roughly $97,000. The debt isn't just the principal, it's the principal plus whatever the bank extracts from you for the privilege of borrowing. Four, the earnings premium. This is the extra money you'll make over your career because you have the degree. It's calculated by comparing your expected lifetime earnings to what you would have earned with just a high school diploma. Here's the brutal truth. When you add up components 1, 2, and 3 and compare them to component 4, a shocking number of degrees don't break even until your late 30s or 40s, and some never break even at all. A study from the Foundation for Equal Opportunity Research, which is a mouthful, so I'll just call them FREOP, analyzed the ROI of over 53,000 degree programs at American colleges and universities. Their findings, roughly 28% of programs, more than a quarter, have a negative lifetime return on investment, meaning you would have been financially better off never attending at all. Let that sink in. Not slightly worse, not about the same, financially worse than if you skipped college entirely. All right, let's get into the actual degrees. And I want to be clear here. I'm going to share real data, and some of it is going to be uncomfortable. If your degree is on the lower end, that doesn't mean you're a failure or that you made a stupid decision. You made a decision with the information you had at the time, probably as a teenager, probably under enormous social pressure. The goal isn't to make anyone feel bad. The goal is to make sure the next generation, and maybe your own kids, have information that you didn't.
So, what are the tiers of degrees based on the return on investment? Tier 1, the clear winners. At the very top, we have degrees that almost universally provide strong positive ROI, regardless of which school you attend. Computer science leads the pack. Median starting salary is $85,000. Median mid-career salary is $130,000. According to Georgetown's Center on Education and the Workforce, computer science graduates earn approximately $3.5 million over their careers, which is nearly double the average bachelor's degree holder. The ROI? Even at an expensive private university, computer science typically pays for itself within 5 to 7 years of graduation. At a public university, we're talking 3 to 4 years. Engineering is right there with it, specifically electrical, computer, petroleum, and chemical engineering. Petroleum engineers have a median starting salary of $78,000 and mid-career earnings around $150,000. Now, petroleum is a volatile field tied to energy markets, so there's career risk there. But the pure ROI calculation is undeniably strong. Nursing is interesting because it doesn't require a 4-year degree to enter the field, but for those who do get a BSN, Bachelor of Science in Nursing, the ROI is excellent. Starting salaries around $65,000, high job security, and a clear path to higher earnings as a nurse practitioner or in specialized fields. Economics and finance degrees from reasonably good schools also perform well, with median mid-career earnings around $100,000 and relatively straightforward paths into banking, consulting, or corporate finance. What do all these have in common? They teach specific, marketable, difficult to replicate skills. There's a clear line between what you learn in the classroom and what employers need you to do. Tiers of degree ROI. Tier 2, positive ROI, but narrower margins. Here's where it gets more complicated. These degrees can provide positive ROI, but the margin for error is much smaller. School choice matters more. Geographic location matters more. Your individual execution matters more. Accounting is a good example. The degree itself is valuable, CPAs are always in demand, but the starting salaries aren't spectacular. You're looking at $55,000 to $60,000 to start, with a clear path to $80,000 to $100,000 mid-career. The ROI is positive at most schools, but if you went $150,000 into debt for an accounting degree from an expensive private school, you're going to be clawing your way back to break even for a while. Marketing, general business, and management degrees fall into this category too. They can lead to good careers, but they're also incredibly common degrees with high competition for the better paying positions. The median outcomes are fine, but there's a wide distribution. Some marketing majors are CMOs making $300,000, and some are doing entry-level digital marketing for $38,000. Information technology is slightly below pure computer science in terms of outcomes, but still solidly positive ROI. The distinction matters here. IT programs tend to be more practical and less theoretical than CS, which translates to slightly lower starting salaries, but good long-term stability. Tier 3, the coin flip degrees. Now we're getting into territory where the ROI is genuinely uncertain. These degrees can work out, but they can just as easily not work out, and the determining factors are often outside your control. Psychology is probably the most important one to discuss here, because it's one of the most popular majors in America. Over 125,000 people graduate with a psychology degree every single year. Here's the problem. A bachelor's in psychology qualifies you for almost nothing in the psychology field. To actually practice psychology, you need a master's degree at minimum, usually a doctorate. That's 6 to 10 years of additional education and potentially $100,000 plus in additional costs. The median starting salary for a psychology bachelor's holder is about $36,000. Mid-career, you're looking at around $60,000. If you went to a state school and kept costs minimal, teaching can provide a modest positive ROI. If you went to an expensive private school thinking you'd be a therapist and then discovered you need a PsyD or PhD to do that, well, the math gets ugly fast. Communications is similar. It's a broad, flexible degree, which sounds good until you realize broad and flexible often translates to doesn't train you for anything specific. Starting salaries average around $40,000. Mid-career hovers around $65,000. Not bad, but if you took on significant debt, the payback period is uncomfortably long. Political science, sociology, and anthropology live here too. These are fascinating fields. I'm not dismissing the intellectual value, but the direct career paths are limited, and the competition for the good positions, government jobs, research positions, think tanks, is fierce. Tier 4, the danger zone. Alright, this is the part of the video where I might make some people upset, but I'd rather have you upset and informed than comfortable and broke. These are fields where the data consistently shows negative or near zero ROI for the majority of graduates. Fine arts, drama, and film have the worst ROI of almost any degrees. The median starting salary for a fine arts graduate is around $32,000. Mid-career, we're looking at $50,000. Meanwhile, these programs often cost the same as or more than engineering programs because of equipment, studio space, and smaller class sizes. FREOPP's data shows that fine arts programs at many schools have a negative lifetime ROI exceeding $100,000. meaning over your entire career, you would have been $100,000 plus better off financially if you had skipped that degree. Now, you might be thinking, but what about the people who make it? What about successful artists and filmmakers? And you're right, they exist. But here's the brutal reality. Survivorship bias is incredibly powerful in creative fields. You see the successes because they're visible. You don't see the thousands of graduates working retail jobs while their dreams slowly fade. I'm not saying don't pursue art. I'm saying maybe don't go $120,000 into debt to pursue art when the vast majority of successful artists didn't need that degree to succeed in the first place. Education degrees are in a weird spot. Teachers are essential, literally foundational to society, but the pay structure for teachers is largely determined by public school salary schedules that haven't kept pace with either college costs or inflation. A typical teacher with a bachelor's degree starts around $42,000 and might reach $65,000 after 20 years. If you went to a state school and kept costs minimal, teaching can provide a modest positive ROI plus benefits like summers off, pension plans, and job stability. But if you went $80,000 into debt for a teaching degree, you're going to be feeling that financial pressure for decades.
The hidden variables. Here's what most people don't realize. The averages hide enormous variation based on factors beyond your major. The school itself. Where you get your degree often matters more than what you study. Elite schools offer better career services, stronger alumni networks, and signaling value that regional schools can't match. A film degree from NYU opens doors that one from random state university simply doesn't. Geographic destination. The same degree has wildly different outcomes depending on which job market you enter. National median salary means nothing if your local market pays 20% below that. Career intentionality. Students who enter with a specific goal and deliberately structure their education, internships, and networking around it dramatically outperform those who drift and see what happens. Same degree, same tuition, completely different ROI.
The alternatives nobody mentions. One of the most frustrating aspects of this conversation is how rarely we discuss alternatives seriously. It's always college versus flipping burgers, a completely false binary. Trade schools and apprenticeships. An electrician apprentice earns while training, finishes in 4 to 5 years with zero debt, and starts around $60,000, with a clear path to $80,000 plus. Compare that to the college grad who spent 4 years paying, emerged with $50,000 in debt, and starts at $45,000. The electrician is $100,000 ahead before 30. Coding boot camps. The good ones cost $10,000 to $20,000, take 3 to 6 months, and place graduates into $60,000 to $80,000 jobs. They won't get you into Google, but the ROI math is almost embarrassingly favorable. Sales careers. Enterprise software sales, medical devices, pharmaceuticals, 6-figure incomes with no degree requirement. Competitive and demanding, sure, but so is getting a degree and starting at $40,000.
What if you've already got a low ROI degree? I know many of you already made this decision years ago. You've got the degree, you've got the debt, now what? First, stop beating yourself up. You made a decision as a teenager based on what authority figures told you. That's not a character flaw, that's being 18. Second, your degree's ROI isn't fixed forever. Your degree was the entry point, but your trajectory is still being written. Your job now is getting yourself into the upper end of that distribution. Skill stacking. Learn data analytics, marketing automation, SEO. Every hard skill makes you more valuable, regardless of what your degree says. Strategic job hopping. Staying put limits you to 3 to 5% raises. Jumping companies often means 15 to 25% increases. Network exploitation. Work those alumni connections, former classmates, and professor contacts intentionally. Adjacent fields. English majors can pivot to technical writing. Psychology majors can move into UX research. Find the bridge. The real conversation we should be having, here's the bigger issue underneath all this data. We've built a system requiring 18-year-olds, people who can't rent cars because insurance companies don't trust their judgment, to make financial decisions worth hundreds of thousands of dollars with lifelong implications. And we actively pressure them toward the most expensive choice. This is insane. We'd never tell an 18-year-old to sign a $100,000 business loan for a company they haven't researched, but we routinely encourage exactly that much debt for an educational product they don't understand, from institutions with zero skin in the game. Colleges get paid regardless of whether graduates succeed. No accountability, no feedback loop, no correction mechanism. Until that changes, the burden falls on individuals to do the analysis the system should be doing for them.
Actionable framework. Here's something concrete to take away. Step 1. Calculate actual total cost. Tuition plus fees plus room and board plus books plus 4 years of lost wages. For most people, $200,000 to $350,000. Step 2. Research realistic outcomes. Look at the 25th percentile salary for that major, not the median, not the exceptional graduate. If it's $38,000, you need to be comfortable with that possibility. Step 3. Calculate break-even. How long until extra earnings exceed total cost? If the answer is age 45, think carefully. Step 4. Compare alternatives directly, not college versus no college. Compare this specific degree at this specific cost to trade school, boot camp, or working immediately. Step 5. Stress test. What if you don't get into grad school? What if the market shifts? What if you change your mind?
The psychology of this decision. If you're already committed to an expensive, low ROI degree, you might be feeling defensive right now, thinking of reasons why your situation is different, why the data doesn't apply to you. This is completely normal. It's called motivated reasoning. I'm not asking you to feel bad. I'm asking you to be honest about the trade-offs. If you want to pursue art, music, or philosophy because you genuinely love it, that's legitimate, but minimize the financial damage. Go to the cheapest school possible, work while enrolled, graduate with minimal debt, develop marketable side skills, have a backup plan. I'm not arguing against following your passion. I'm arguing against crippling your financial future with reckless debt while doing so. Those aren't the same thing. The diploma ROI crisis isn't really about diplomas. It's about a system that profits from confusion and individuals left figuring things out after the damage is done. The average borrower spends over 20 years paying off student debt. 20 years of constrained finances because of a decision made as a teenager with incomplete information. If this video prevents one person from making a financially catastrophic education decision, it was worth making. The data is brutal, but data is just information. What you do with it is up to you. My name is Sage. Thanks for watching.